I'm going to talk about navigating a toxic, narcissistic ex-partner who you share children with. We're just going to do it real quick. I'm going to read to you something that someone wrote to me that inspired me to answer this question. Yet again, it's a common question. I hear it maybe once a day. And it has to do with being triggered by your ex, basically. That anytime this person pops up in any way, shape, or form, it sends you into an emotional tailspin of some sort, or you're really feeling sick about it, or you feel physically ill about it afterwards, or you get nervous. And then here's what you do. You beat yourself up for that feeling over and over again. Why? Why do I still feel this way? Why do I have this reaction? I shouldn't feel like this. I should be farther along. And then you're mad because they still have that kind of power over you. Like, I don't want them to be able to do this to me. I don't want them to be able to evoke this sort of response. And realizing that that's still giving them power over you. Okay? So it's very common for any of us who have been abused by someone. We're all going to be triggered in some way, shape, or form by this person for eternity for many people. Okay? And I'll tell you why in just a second. First, I'm going to read the email. Then I'm going to explain to you why we feel this way. And then I'm just going to give you a couple tips for navigating these types of circumstances. But if you want to learn more, tune in at the end of June. We're going to have an entire webinar just on this topic. Before I get started, though, I have to plug Monday is our next SNAP series. Monday the 25th. Yes, I know it's Memorial Day, but it's just how it worked out. Now during this quarantine pandemic, everyone's schedules is sort of up in the air. So we're going to stick with it, even though it's Memorial Day, and we're going to go ahead and have our first SNAP class of this series, which is class 1, and that's all about abusive personalities. And we really focus on the common features that you can see in abusive and manipulative people. Not only will this help you identify things from your past and, oh, that's what that was. Yes, no, wait, I just thought that they were a difficult person. No, this was abuse, you know, so you learn how to identify things from your present and your past, but also, more importantly, for the future, so that you know how to spot manipulative and toxic traits and features in someone else, and then perhaps we might prevent future pain and trauma. All right, let's get started. So this comes from someone who has written in before, and I'm going to change some of the language to protect this person's privacy. But they write in saying, I'm co-parenting with a narcissist, co-parenting with a narcissist, which of course we know there's no such thing as co-parenting, there's counter-parenting, right? It's very hard to form a team with this person to truly partner with you. Everything's a competition, everything's a game with them. So it's very difficult to have a healthy co-parenting relationship. And this person says every interaction becomes really difficult. And this person's using one of those apps that the court suggests people use. One is called Our Family Wizard. There's a few others too. And there's a price to it. You have to pay for it. But what it does is the court can order everyone to only communicate using this system. And then that way it's monitored and anyone can see anything that's been said. But as this person points out, it doesn't always stop abusive and manipulative people from behaving the way that they naturally behave. Some respond to having a witness. They don't want people to know who they are behind their mask. And so they'll change their behavior when there's people around, depending on whether that's a high value or a low value target. Then we have others who do not respond to having a witness at all because they really do feel like that they're smarter and better and untouchable, or they might be more, farther down on the narcissistic spectrum, now heading into antisocial personality, where they truly don't care what people think at all. But usually some kind of witness of some sort will curb the person's behavior, but not always. And this person's having severe anxiety every time they go to check this app. So the app is actually supposed to shield us and protect us a little bit, but it's still going to be something that we have anxiety about. When we see a message that has come in, or we go in to check something, it makes perfect sense that even though we're still contained to this monitored app, that we're going to have a response, and I'll tell you why in a sec. This person says that their ex uses the app to harass about petty things, and things about child support or doctors' co-pays, living expenses, old bills that were paid like a long time ago, and so basically, what I understand this person to be saying is that even though they're using the app, even though they know that the person is a narcissist, even though the narcissist is being monitored, there's still shenanigans, there's still games being played, there's still manipulation and harassment happening. But of course, they always do it in this like dog whistle way, where they'll continue to poke and poke and poke and poke in any way they can possibly think of. But if you think about the amount of time and thought it takes for someone to nitpick and find and dig and bring something up from a few years ago, and that takes a lot of time and attention, which means that they're obsessed, which means that they're spending maybe more time than you are thinking about the situation, thinking about you more than they're even thinking. They're thinking about you more than you're thinking about them. It's a big possibility. It takes a lot of time and effort to keep up with harassing someone, especially when your options for harassment have been limited. That's a real project for this person. And I don't know, that makes me feel kind of good that they're strapped to it and that they can't think of anything else, because, yeah, it kind of looks that way. And good, good. I hope you're very confused and frustrated by the consequences of your own behaviors. Okay, so I just want to talk about why it is that we have these sorts of responses, despite everything, despite education, despite therapy, despite time and understanding. You still will have a physiological response to this person because they have traumatized you and abused you. There are two neural pathways in our brain. This is neurobiological. This has nothing to do with your character, your strength, your progress, your effort, your will. It has nothing to do with any of that. It is purely a neurobiological response to this individual because they have traumatized you and abused you in the past. For example, if you were bitten by a dog as a child, you might notice that today, every time a dog is around, you get a little unsettled. Even to this day, you may not like dogs. Perhaps as a child, you were inappropriately touched, or I guess I should say molested by someone who had a certain smell about them. And now every time you smell that smell, you start to feel sick and you don't feel, you feel unsettled or anxious. Okay, PTSD, what PTSD does is it leaves an imprint on the brain. So when someone traumatizes you or something traumatizes you, it pairs with your amygdala. Okay, so the amygdala is one of the two neural pathways that work to engage trauma, anxiety, those fight-flight responses. It's more of a sensor, right? It's not the thinking part of your brain. That's the other neural pathway, which is your cortex. Those where the thoughts come in, right? But what happens is we have an initial physiological response. And here comes the feeling, and now here comes the thoughts. And that's how it happens. And if you pay attention, you'll notice that that's the order in which it happens, is that your brain starts to have thoughts that are responding to the amygdala feeling. So I'm sweaty, I'm anxious, I'm worried, my heart's pounding, I feel sick at my stomach. And now I'm thinking, oh, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? Oh, I'm a weakling. Oh, this person has power over me. I don't get it. Why? It must be me. I'm the problem, right? Because that's your cortex, right? All right, so to understand that the reason why you have an emotional, angry, nervous, nauseous response to this person is because of your amygdala, and furthermore, your amygdala is acting appropriately and accurately. It's responding accurately. This is not a sign that you are unwell, that you haven't made progress, that you're weak. That's not what this means. It's the same thing as if you are allergic to peanuts and you accidentally ate one. You wouldn't be sitting going, oh God, why? Why did I have this response to this peanut? What's wrong with me? I'm so weak. No, you would be, oh crap, I ate a peanut. No wonder I feel sick. And that's it, right? And what I'm asking you to do is to shift your thinking a little bit and to stop assigning so much meaning to these physiological amygdala responses that we have when we're around or encounter or engage with manipulative, negative, narcissistic people from your past, especially ex-abusers. We don't need to beat ourselves up for this, and we don't need to assign any more meaning to it than it has, which is nothing. Okay, so if I eat a burrito and then I'm gassy because I ate the burrito, I'm not sitting there going, I'm a horrible person because I'm gassy because I ate a burrito. So when you encounter this person and you start to feel the way that you feel, we need to expect it. We need to expect that this is how it feels, and furthermore, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean a thing. I'm going to say it in a more, I don't know. It doesn't mean a goddamn thing. It doesn't mean a fucking thing. Okay? Doesn't mean you still love them. It doesn't mean that you're still, worried about them and that you're obsessed with them or anything like that. It means none of those things. Every single meaning that you like to assign to that feeling is wrong. Okay? So that's one reason why it has a lot of power over us, is because we allow that feeling to define us and to define our progress and to, we use it as a gauge as to where we are with things. And I'll know that I've made progress when I can have an encounter with this person and I just keep on walking. You're not going to do that. It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because you have a brain that functions. That's why. Okay? All right. So that's why it happens. And I could talk about it all day long. And sometimes I wind up talking about it all day long because people don't understand that our brains are in charge. And the brain is running everything. Every bit of your body is coming from the brain, is in charge, right? And that means that you're going to be subjected to and a slave to your brain sometimes, right? Not all the time. We can make changes, right? We can make some adjustments, but there are some things that are hardwired that's very difficult to overcome. If we even were going to attempt that, it would be very difficult, very difficult. And usually what would happen is we would wind up having to do some sort of exposure therapy to get the brain to not have the triggered response, which means exposing yourself over and over and over and over again. Who wants to do that, right? And even with a lot of people, a lot of survivors, they are exposed over and over and over again, and they'll still continue to have a trauma response. So let's just go ahead and give it a big old hug, right? And when it happens, like, sit in the feeling and go, it's a feeling, it's just a feeling, it's a feeling. And the feelings are different for everyone. You might feel dizzy, you might feel nauseous, you might feel hot and sweaty, you might feel shaky, you might feel angry, you might feel sleepy even, because it sucks the life right out of you. It affects everyone differently, right? But it's just a feeling and it will pass and it doesn't mean anything. And so we sit in the feeling and we say to ourselves, this is how it feels. And then it will pass, okay? All right. Another thing you can do is what we call emotional shielding. And that's for when you know that ahead of time that you're going to possibly have an encounter. So perhaps for this particular person, before you check the app, make sure you do a checklist for yourself. How am I feeling right now? Have I slept? Have I eaten? Am I already feeling triggered before I even open the app? Maybe now's not the right time to open the app. Perhaps we should wait until later. Or before we open the app, we can have a mantra that we say. We can do something symbolic. So, for example, we'll say, you've got a piece of jewelry, or ring. Okay, we'll use the ring. Here's the ring. This represents my emotional, vulnerable self. And I'm putting it down, I'm leaving it here, which means that when I go into this interaction, I am just my body, I'm not my soul, and I'm purely here to exchange information, and that is all. And that's one way you can do emotional shielding, is to get yourself into a good headspace before the interaction. That's one thing you can do to try to reduce the response. Again, it's not going to erase it, but it might reduce it and at least make you feel like you're more in control of the encounter. Another thing that you can do is remember your business pants. Now, remember how I said that we've got the two neural pathways. We've got the amygdala, we've got the cortex, right? And what will happen is when we put our business pants on, the business pants makes us operate from the prefrontal cortex. What I mean by that is, imagine you're at work and there's an angry customer and they're really giving it to you. You might have that feeling of being attacked, but you're at work. And so therefore you can't respond in an emotional way. You have to say, I'm so sorry that you feel that way. Let me see what I can do to help. And then you walk away and you might say to your coworker, what an asshole. Look at this jerk. Look at how they're talking to me. Oh my God. And you might even chuckle about it. Like, whoa, that guy's having a bad day. If he's harassing the teller at the bank this way. So if you think about the interactions as business, meaning that you're only exchanging information and that's it. And forget the innuendo. Forget what what his messages imply or what her messages imply. We know what they're trying to do. They're trying to poke, and say, well, what about this? Did you pay this? And you owe me for this and this and this. Well, what's the goal there, right? So here's the next tool. And there's a whole video about this, yet again, intent versus content. Remember, content, intent, content, intent. We've got to take a step back and go, it's not about the content. Even in this email, the person talks about how the ex suggests that they haven't paid for this and that. And then, the person goes on to say, I have paid many times. I've paid this, I pay that. This person in this paragraph is getting caught up in content. So they're falling for the content. It's not about the content. It's about the intent. What did they hope to achieve in messaging you these things? What did they want to do? They wanted to infect your mind, control you, make you afraid and threatened, feel threatened, to let you know that they're all up in everything and you're not going to get away with anything. So you're always on your toes and hypervigilant and waiting and worried, right? It's not about the money. It's not about the doctor visits or the co-pays or the, living expenses. It's not about any of those things. But when we get caught up in the content, then they're winning, right? We're just coming down to their level and now we're haggling over content. And truly, you could just insert content here. It wouldn't matter. They're always going to come up with something. You could be doing everything. They could give you a list of do this, this, and this. And you say, okay, and you do this, this, and this. And then, oh, you did it wrong. And that's not what I told you to do. You may have done it, but I know you didn't really mean it, like the way you should have meant it. It wouldn't matter what you're doing. It's always going to be wrong. So don't get caught up in the content. Think about the intent. What is this person hoping to achieve? And look back at some of the previous videos that talk about these sorts of navigational tools. On page, so content versus intent, putting on your business pants, meaning it's pure information, it doesn't mean anything, despite how they're poking at you emotionally. Just like if you were at work and someone was poking at you emotionally, you'd have to do something mentally with that. You'd have to use some kind of an emotional shield, your business pants, or however you want to imagine it. That's what you would have to do to stay in your prefrontal cortex. Okay, so business pants, content versus intent, and a lot of these navigational tools keeps you in the thinking and logical part of your brain, right? And it helps you simultaneously, and this brings me to my next point, you can simultaneously be empowered and triggered. Did you know that? Did you know that you can be triggered as F? You can be so triggered and still be empowered. You can be so triggered and still have the upper hand. You can be so triggered and stick to your guns and your gray rock and your no contact and set boundaries and build a new life, a happy, healthy life in recovery from narcissistic abuse, and still be triggered. Being triggered does not mean that these other things don't exist. They live together simultaneously. And it's a marriage, it's symbiosis, they go together. Unfortunately, it's a partner. The trigger, the trauma is something that we live with and that we keep with us and we deal with and manage and we turn it into strength. But it can go together. Strength and trigger, trauma, strength, PTSD, strength, wisdom, growth. All of it goes together. It's all in one basket. So stop erasing every good thing you've done every time you feel triggered. It only just sort of feeds their narrative, which is that there's something wrong with you, right? And we all know there's nothing wrong with you. We know that, and you know that too deep down. Okay, and let's see, I think, so shifting your thinking is what we're trying to do here. We're not going to be able to change the physical aspect of this. We will change how we respond to the physical aspect of it and how much meaning we assign to it, okay? If you have any other questions about this topic, oh, by the way, this person had written a couple more topics that I'll go over on a later date, maybe next week, because they're really great questions. And I have so many people that have the same questions, I can't help it. I'm going to have to do the whole thing. So we'll do the next one next week. Don't forget about the webinar coming up at the end of June. And then, of course, the SNAP class that starts on Monday, this coming Monday, the 25th. If you want to sign up, please go to our website, www.claremontmentalhealth.care. Click Schedule Now, and you'll sign up for the class. It does require a credit card. However, if you have contacted me or one of our staff and let us know that you can't afford the $25 fee, you'll still be expected to use the credit card, but then you won't be charged afterwards. That's done manually by one of us. And the class is $25, but you can pay whatever you can afford, including $0. Also, we protect your privacy and your anonymity. If you let me know, hey, I want to be super private about this, there's no name even on your little square on the screen. You just listen and watch, and nobody even knows you're there. If you're worried about that sort of thing. I hope you guys have a really great day, and I hope this has been helpful. See you next week.